Okay, it looks like we're live. Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for Quotas Aren't Evil today with Delia Parman. My name is Jacob Cullum. I'm the Digital Marketing Manager here at Consensus, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. Now, DEMOFEST is presented by Consensus, and Consensus is intelligent demo automation software to help scale pre-sales with interactive video demos. You can learn more at goconsensus.com or view the automated micro demo that's in the link in the Docs tab at the right of your screen. And Consensus is proud to provide this event for free for all attendees. However, we would like to invite each of you to donate to our company's humanitarian organizations if you'd like to. You can learn more about this and donate by visiting the DEMOFEST Gives Back booth that's in our virtual expo hall in the Booths tab. Or again, you can use the link in the Docs tab that's on the right. And we also invite you to join us in our DEMOFEST community that's on Discord. Our community is where you can connect with speakers, get exclusive access to content and events, and the conversation will continue long after DEMOFEST has ended. So please, everybody here today, join us on Discord. You can join the community. Again, there's a link in the Docs tab on the right for that. And now we also encourage you to please participate in today's session. So there's a few things you can click on the right-hand side of your screen. The chat function here, that'll allow you to engage with us as well as other attendees. Feel free to say, who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing there. And also, you're going to see some polls, well, at least one poll today during the session. That's open now, so you can go ahead and click the poll there and please answer, and that'll be part of the presentation shortly. Our speaker will be taking questions from the audience during the session. So you can put in any questions you have there in the Q&A, and we'll be sure to get to those. I think that's one of the biggest positives of being here live. You can ask the questions that you have for Delia right now and get an answer. So be sure to do that right there in the Q&A. And if at any time you're having technical difficulties, you can head to this gear that's on the bottom of your screen. You'll see a help document, and you can troubleshoot any common issues that you might be having. And now I'd like to introduce our speaker. And with 20 years in pre-sales, 10 as a pre-sales leader, Delia is specialized in hiring and growing high-performing teams. With a tenure that spans startups to large global tech companies, she's been successful in elevating the solution consulting role across sales organizations and integrating strategic direction into pre-sales programs. Having just left the full-time corporate world a few months ago, she remains a committed evangelist for the pre-sales community. And with that, I'll turn the rest of the time over to you, Delia.
Thank you, Jacob. Hi, everyone. Let's get this started. Wonderful. I think you saw that my provocative title for my session, so it'll be interesting to see who joins today and whether I've scared some people off. I want to start today with a quote from what most of us in pre-sales leadership considered to be the Bible of solution consulting or sales engineering management, written by our esteemed experts, John Kerr and Chris Daly. This is the description of what a good compensation plan looks like. And today, I'm going to focus on what I believe constitutes that particular motivation for great results. So, quotas are not evil. In fact, I believe that a well-constructed quota-based commission or bonus plan, you pick the term, can really elevate your team and promote great success. So first, I want to take a look at the landscape today, and then we'll take a look at the quota results. So I'll do that in just a couple of minutes after a couple of slides here, Jacob. This is updated data from Consensus's Sales Engineer Compensation and Workload Report for 2023. In fact, there was a great presentation that John Reed did on a lot of the data from this report in the meeting yesterday. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to go to the Consensus website and download this report. Very valuable information, especially for managers and leaders of solution consulting or sales engineering terms. You'll notice that there is some quota that SEs typically have. Looks like most of it is a team quota. That's not unusual. And 14% is the small number that for those who only have personal quota. The leaders' numbers are pretty similar, although I found it quite interesting that 33% of the leaders have no quota at all. That was quite interesting for me. However, for our purposes today, I'm going to focus on the individual contributor personal quota. By the way, in Delia speak, SE equals SC. Sales engineer equals solution consultant, which is what my individual contributors on my teams were called. So today you may hear me going back and forth with that terminology. Jacob, do we want to stop here and see what the poll looks like so far?
Yeah, if you stop sharing, I can throw the poll up. So
yes.
Results.
I will do that.
So you can still answer the poll right here. So anyone who hasn't answered yet, we've got about 100 people watching. So let's get a few more answers in there. Go ahead and you can click to vote now.
We'll give that a second. And by the way, Jacob, we may want to also refer back to the poll in just a few minutes so that everybody's had a chance to vote. It looks like we're kind of neck and neck here so far. So that'll be interesting information based upon the data that we also have in the slides. So if you will stop sharing and I'll go back.
Okay, let me know if you want me to bring it back up in a bit.
I will. Perfect. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is the KPI for revenue. This also came, by the way, from the compensation and workload report. The main performance criteria by far is revenue, which really aligns with most sales organizations where the AEs or the sales reps carry individual quotas. And yet, for many SCs, the compensation does not directly reflect their contribution to that KPI. In fact, as you see here, almost 40% have no performance quota. This is a disconnect that is pretty well known in our field. In fact, it was noted by Rex Galbraith with consensus in his recent white paper. And this white paper is interesting to me. It's the 5 burning pre-sales problems sales leaders observe. I would encourage you to find this white paper and download it. But the number one problem is that pre-sales does not effectively tie performance to revenue. Not surprising. Or, in fact, this is the way many SCs feel about the work that they do when they're trying to grow that revenue KPI. How many of you looking at the screen right now are nodding ferociously or maybe slipped out? Because this is not new for any of us. But I happen to believe there's a way to help solve this disparity. As I mentioned, I believe a well-designed quota-based comp model is the way to go to help bridge that gap. Now, just a little background on me. I've had experience leading teams that have metric-based bonus comp models based on formulas around KPIs and activity, MBO plans, certifications, all of that sort of thing. And I've also led teams that had experience leading teams with this quota-based plan that I'm going to talk about today. Each of these, by the way, under different executive leadership. Having deployed both, I have seen more success with the quota-based model. Let me tell you why I think that it's more successful. First of all, the obvious benefit is the opportunity for higher financial achievement, especially if your plan has accelerators, which many sales comp plans do include. And we'll talk more about that in just a minute. And this is hot off the presses from yesterday, from John's presentation and the compensation and workload report, individual contributor SEs achieved 30% higher OTE or on target earnings. It seems like a pretty good validation for the premise. But this model also maps more closely with workload expectation. Looking at the numbers here, we see SCs work really hard. We know that. They work really hard. They work sometimes very long hours for weeks at a time. And an SC needs to believe my work has value. And the opportunity for making more income and a quota-based plan will enforce that concept to them. By the way, here's another nugget from that 2023 compensation and workload report that John mentioned yesterday. One of the top reasons for SE burnout is not enough recognition for the value they bring to the sales cycle. That was really an impactful piece of data from yesterday. So another benefit that I have seen happen all the time is greater commitment and accountability for driving and winning business for the individual SC. Instead of just being responsible for churning out demos, there's this paradigm shift that happens for the SC to begin to think, what is the most effective use of my time to help move this opportunity forward, to help drive this business? And I'd be willing to bet it's probably not 10 intro demos. I've also seen time and time again an SC status being elevated to a higher level of influence among their sales team. Interestingly, if an AE or a sales rep knows that their aligned SC's comp is as tied to winning a deal as the sales reps is, there's a light bulb that goes off, and all of a sudden they're paying closer attention to and giving more credibility to the SC's ideas, suggestions, strategies for helping to move the opportunity for you forward. This is where that co-pilot partnership status that is elusive to so many of us can really be more easily attained. And this kind of plan is really a simpler concept. There are not those complex formulas that need to be calculated and validated, MBO, plan, activity, numbers, all that sort of thing. In fact, we'll talk more about this in a minute, but quite frankly, you can use a similar plan that's used to pay your AEs in the organization. And that may also be easier to justify to sales finance leadership. They're already accustomed to deriving sales commissions from a revenue stream rather than it being a separate line item in the budget. By the way, I'm not suggesting that there's no need to collect metric data on your team because it can serve many purposes, but I don't believe compensation should be one of them. So let's take a minute to talk about the considerations for actually designing and deploying this plan. I have found that a quota-based comp model is typically more suited to an alignment operating model. I've seen it succeed very well when SCs are already aligned to account reps, regions, segments, whatever it might be. But adopting a quota model for a quota plan for a pool model might be a little bit trickier. You're also going to need support from these other departments: finance, HR, legal. Involve them as you're trying to formulate the plan, and particularly when you implement the plan, because some mindsets may have to be changed. I remember the story that my boss told me about one day when the head of sales finance called him about a particular solution consultant that was on one of my teams who had just received the quarterly bonus, and it was a quite healthy amount of money because this person had worked very, very hard on helping to drive some great opportunities in her alignment. And the sales finance leader said, we've never paid solution consultants this much money. To which my boss responded, "I know. Isn't that great?" So you see, you may have to change some mindsets along the way. The other thing is, and I mentioned earlier, that the sales rep, AE, sales organization's comp plan is already developed. You may be able to use the same model, just make changes to fit your SC plan. For example, you can leverage the OTE plan or on target earnings that's already in place. Often, the split for a sales rep will be 50% base, 50% commission. You could change those numbers for your SC: 70% base, 30% quota based bonus, 65-35, 80-20, whatever you think is the best for your particular organization, but there's no need here to reinvent the wheel. By the way, a disclaimer: stock options are not a part of my discussion today, but they can also often play a really important role in an effective comp plan. And so if you have an opportunity to leverage that within your organization, you certainly want to consider it. Also, look to the AE's plan for exception policies. Often you can adapt these to your own team as well. It's advantageous to have these exception policies in place for out of territory work, to deal with ad hoc queries or inquiries or disputes that may come your way. It's much easier to have a policy in place ahead of time rather than to just try to manage these on a one-off basis. You need to factor in, is my team specialists? Are they generalists? Are they aligned to regions versus AEs? Are the market segments different? Depending on these particular criteria, you may want to consider a blended quota. This, by the way, can also take account for teamwork that's outside the SC alignment. Work on non-territory opportunities, for example. Above all, communicate, over-communicate. Communicate to your SEs. How does this plan work? What ratios are used? What are the exception policies? Set the right expectations. Be completely transparent. Explain the possible risks versus the rewards. And I have found it very helpful if you can provide your SC team access to the same sales reports that the sales reps, the AEs, use to track their opportunities, so that your teams can also track their progress of attaining their own quotas. It's also important for you to inform your peer managers in sales leadership and ask them to let their teams know that SCs also are going to get paid for winning business. By the way, this is a good time to mention that a quota-based plan does not preclude special individual recognition, such as spiffs or physical awards or attaining sales clubs. All of these things are just as important for your achievers. So I'm going to stop right here. We're going to talk in a moment about some considerations for when your plan is put into play. But I want to see, Jacob, if we have any questions that we might address right now. Very curious to hear pros and cons for individual versus team quotas. I think there's a place for both. Alan, you saw my slide just previous. Sometimes you're going to want to blend the quotas. I do think it's very important for an individual SC to have some portion of that compensation be their own individual quota. Now, it can be an aggregate of a combination of AEs they work with or are aligned to. It could be region, but I do think it's important that they have their own quota number, however it's based, to be responsible for. I hope that helps. Any other questions right now?
That's the only question we have so far in the Q&A box. So everybody listening, please go enter your questions in there. We did have a few good comments like this one. The AE is flying the plane, the SC's been in more cockpits.
That's great, Alan. I might steal that if you don't mind. What about our poll, Jacob? Have we gotten more feedback from the poll numbers?
Yeah, I'll bring that up right now.
So it looks like the no's, which is we don't have any individual bonus compensation or quota-based compensation, is just edging out the yeses. It's actually pretty encouraging to me, and it differs just a little bit from the information, the data that was collected for the compensation and workload report. However, good. Let's keep that number of yeses. In Delia's opinion, that is the way that this particular poll should go. The more quota-based plans we get out there, the more beneficial it can be for your teams. So I've got 2 or 3 more slides that I want to present, and then we can have additional discussion following those, if you'll allow me to share, Jacob.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you. And it looks like a few more questions are coming in, so we can leave those towards the end if you want.
That sounds great. Okay. Now, implementing is the first step. You've got to get your plan in place, but then what do you need to consider when you're rolling it out? Be prepared to make modifications. I can't emphasize this enough, especially in the early months of adoption. You're going to want to review the sales data carefully. Is there disparity between your segments, between your strategic versus transactional alignment? How do you account for underperformance by sales? All of these things you need to look at in the early months so that you can go ahead and make changes when needed. For example, in the early months of deploying a quota-based plan for one of my teams, they were aligned to an SMB team. And it became clear because of the churn in that particular team and department and on the sales side, alignments to individual AEs didn't work as well as a basis for individual SC quota. So we tweaked the plan just for that team. So the SC quota was based on a regional number within that department. Also, that promoted teamwork, by the way, and it leveled out some of the variation in compensation that they might have had. I tell you that story to say one size does not fit all, and you should exercise flexibility whenever you need to. For example, is there a way for you to account for non-quota related work? Customer success, marketing. We know that solution consultants are often brought in to help assist post-sale with marketing efforts, even with BD support. How do you want to account for that non-quota related work? Is that something that is part of the plan? Is it outside the plan? Just make considerations for that. Also, follow the data. Look at the numbers. Listen to your SCs, and don't be afraid to tweak the plan if necessary. By the way, there is one objection to a quota-based SC plan that I hear fairly often, and that is, won't personal quota turn my SC into a bag carrier? And my response to that is an emphatic no. Being paid on quota does not change the solution consultant or sales engineer's job description. The job of being the product and technical expert, of having good discovery conversations, of understanding customers' needs and challenges and articulating product's value to those challenges, providing outstanding demonstrations and presentations, responding to RFPs, all of those things are still going to be a part of the job required for the SC. But with the ability to overachieve, there's more motivation and more sense of accomplishment when the money that you earn begins to match the workload that you have. So I'm going to leave you with this one final story. I had an email from one of my team members who was fairly new to the organization, who wanted to talk about her most recent bonus plan, not her plan, rather, her most recent bonus payment. So I got on the phone, we'll call her Janie. I got on the phone with Janie, and I had pulled up her report. She had pulled it up, and I had it in front of me, and I said, okay, what questions do you have? Compensation or about your bonus? And she said, is this right? And I looked at the report again and I said, well, I've reviewed this report before any of the compensation was issued. And it looked to me like this was accurate based upon what had happened with your opportunities and your business and your quota numbers. Is there a specific question you have? And there was a pause, about a 10-second pause, as a matter of fact. And when she responded, I could tell there was emotion in her voice because she said, I've never made this much money. In fact, I told my husband last night, the company's going to realize the mistake that they've made, and they're going to yank that money right back out of my bank account. Of course, I told her, no, that this is accurate. This is really what you've earned, and you've earned it because of the work that you've done to try to help drive business for your segment and for your alignment. So, no, this isn't a mistake. By the way, it wouldn't surprise you to know that this particular individual has gone on to be a rock star in her solution consulting organization and has reached senior level positions and is admired by her peers as well as others throughout the business. It's in the company itself. I'll tell you, as a leader, I could have conversations like that all day long. So finally, I'll leave you with this thought. Would you rather have this kind of image for your SC team or this one? Thanks, everybody. All right, Jacob, let's see if we've got questions that we can respond to, and we may be able to give people a little time back on their calendars today.
It looks like one more question came in, and I can put that up on the screen now. But anybody else who's still here, this is your time. If you have any burning questions for Delia, put them into the Q&A. But when we're done with these, yeah, we can end.
Turning to a tactical approach, how much did you need to collaborate with RevOps to plan and apply commission? Did you meet any hurdles in terms of prioritization, capacity, etc.? Rebecca, I will tell you that much collaboration was needed with your revenue or sales ops to plan and apply the commission, and with sales finance, if that's a separate organization. When you say hurdles in terms of prioritization or capacity, I'm not sure. Could you clarify that for me? You might want to put it in chat or in the Q&A.
I'll keep my eye out on that, but okay, pressure's on
Okay.
to follow up and clarification in the chat.
Great. And by the way, Rebecca, if you're talking about capacity as far as the ratio of AE to SC, I think that there are going to be hurdles in those situations outside of the quota-based compensation. You need to make sure that your alignment is as doable and manageable as possible. But I think that actually makes it lend itself better to a quota-based plan.
I think I found it. It looks like Rebecca put an answer in the public chat instead of the session chat, but I still see it Rebecca says, just in general, the wider sales team perhaps takes prioritization where limited resources.
Yes, and I think that is one of the challenges. You have to have great leadership and people that are willing to step up and make the case for your team and to expand the priority of your team as well. So candidly, it may be a bit of a challenging change, but in my opinion, it's worth it.
We have one more question that came in. I'll throw that up.
Would you be able to provide some examples of common KPIs for SEs that quota is based on? Roy, typically, in my experience, the KPI that the quota is based on has to do with the quota of their aligned AEs or regions. So it's not so much a KPI number or performance. It is based upon what is the quota attainment goal for whatever that alignment model is. Is it to AEs? Is it to a particular department? Is it to a region? So the quota is based not on KPIs in Delia's example, is based upon attaining or overachieving that particular quota goal number. And if that's not clear, Roy, I'm happy to take the conversation offline. As I mentioned earlier, KPIs are important. Metric information is very important for you to understand the performance of your team and how you might allocate your resources. But that's not typically what our quota-based compensations are based on. Hope that helps.
Okay, we got
Any
one
other questions,
more.
Jacob?
We got one more.
All right.
Came in. Let me put this up now.
Greg, I've seen both team level commission and individual. With the individual, I've seen the best SEs fighting to work for the best reps and get the best deals. New hires were pushed to less effective reps and lower qualified deals. The competitive SEs were not always the best team players. Thoughts on how I overcome internal competition? I did not address this, Greg, but I will tell you what my thought and opinion is about it. Part of your responsibility as a leader for your teams is to be aware of these situations and to try to balance them. Because new hires being aligned with less effective or newer reps is not a win-win situation. So in my world, I would try to match the SE with, if you're matching with alignments, I would match with an experienced AE or two and a unexperienced or less effective so that there's balance there. And SEs fighting to work for the best reps, I get it. I think competitive, ambitious SEs are always going to do that. But at the end of the day, it's your decision how to align them. It's not their decision. And by the way, the reverse of that is also the case. At the end of the day, the reps can't say, I only want to work with Susie because she's the best one on the team and I get along with her. It's your job as a leader to have some checks and balances in place for that. And the team player thing, you may not have seen the slide or heard the comment earlier. I think that's a good reason for having blended quotas, where some of the compensation that the SE earns is on from a larger pool of money, if you will. Maybe it's a region or it's the market segment, whatever it might be that best fits your organization. Hope that helps. Happy to have a conversation offline about it, Greg, because this is something that we all deal with.
It looks like that's our last question. And so if you're ready to end, Delia, I can take it from here.
Please do. Thank you. And thank you all. I enjoyed it.
Put these back up. Okay, I do have a couple more things to share before we end. I want to remind everyone about our DEMOFEST game. So each session you attend and each session feedback survey you fill out, that gets you points to win some of our awesome prizes featured here. We're also very excited to be bringing DEMOFEST on the road again as DEMOFEST X. Now, we had a great time in San Francisco in March, and we're also bringing the event to Dublin, London, and New York City later this year. You can register to join us at any of these events at demofest.com. There's also a link in the Docs tab. And please do stop by our expo hall to visit our premier partners of DEMOFEST. Remember, there's no transfer of money involved in this event, so all our partners here have gone above and beyond to contribute to making this event a success for everybody. And finally, thank you so much for joining us for Quotas Aren't Evil. And thank you so much, Delia, for the awesome presentation. I'm glad that we got some good questions in there as well. And just thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
So you'll be automatically pushed to the next session at the top of the hour. You can switch tracks or sessions anytime by toggling over to the agenda tab that's on the top left of your screen. But we'll see you soon and enjoy the rest of DEMOFEST.